on a weekly basis. If you're not, I highly suggest that you should do that. So these are leading market indicators, and this is for the Indianapolis market. That's where I live. And these are numbers that I pull every single Tuesday morning, right? Okay, don't laugh at our average sales price, Leo. So I pull these numbers every Tuesday morning. It literally takes me 3 minutes, but it gives me a ton of data that I can use. So I'm pulling price reductions, pendings, solds, expireds, new listings, total residential listings for sale, and back on market. I love that stat, by the way. If you're not using it for scripting in your listing appointments, highly suggest that you start doing that. And know that back on market number and say, sitting at the table, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, last week, 150 homeowners thought they had their house sold, but they didn't, right? They had to start all over. You need someone who's a strong negotiator and can get you to the closing table. That's why I'm here, right? So, okay, so we pull back on market. And then month end, I'm looking at new construction permits, days on market, average list and sold prices, and then month supply of inventory. So again, I'm pulling this. This is just a Google spreadsheet I made, you guys, just really simple, but I pull it every Tuesday because I want the weekend numbers to be recorded, right? It takes me 3 minutes, throw it into my spreadsheet. And when I do this, I can look at these numbers and guess what? I can see trends before all the other agents in my market. And I can see that our list price reductions are increasing, our expireds are starting to creep up, right? So that means we can't price a home above market like we used to. And I can make those adjustments before all of the other agents. So mid-year, I'm looking at national market. I'm looking at my local market. I'm asking my agents, are you outpacing the market, right? So that's step number one. So what other questions should you be asking yourself mid-year? What about this one? What % of my business is buyers versus sellers? Now, if you're new in real estate or newer, typically, you're going to see about 60% of your business being buyers, 40% being sellers. You're experienced and you handle buyers and sellers, you're probably 50-50, right? If you're a little pickier with buyers, you may be 60% sellers. But if you see that a high percentage or a higher than you'd want percentage of your business is buyers year to date, obviously, we're going to start focusing on prospecting for sellers, right? We all know it's easier to pick up a buyer than a seller. But we're not in real estate because it's easy, right? Are any of us in this business because it's easy? No, none of us. We're in this business because of the potential. So look at your business. Are you too buyer heavy? If you are, sharpen the seller skills. We'll talk about a couple of those today and work on the potential that exists in this business. So sometimes we tell ourselves things, right? Like, my gosh, listings, they're hard to get right now, or it's such a hard market. And I'm not saying that those are incorrect thoughts, but when we think thoughts like that, right? Like, oh my gosh, the market is so hard right now, or oh, interest rates are rising, right? Who would want to sell their house and buy something right now? Interest rates are rising. When we think those thoughts, our brain creates this chemical that signals our body to feel the emotion of that thought. So what emotion would that thought create, right? This market's so hard. Oh my gosh, probably discouragement, right? So then you're going to feel discouraged, which then leads to more thoughts in alignment with that emotion of discouragement. This is the thought emotion cycle, and it's up to you to break that, right? So when you find yourself, and we all do it, I don't care who we are, we all get in these negative thought emotion cycles. But when you find yourself in one, I want you to try a pattern interrupt. And a pattern interrupt is simply a physical sensation that interrupts those negative thought or sometimes behavior patterns. I used to have some coaching clients for weight loss, and I would teach them how to use a pattern interrupt for their negative behavior patterns, like snacking after dinner, right? So you can use it for both, but in this scenario, we're talking about those negative thoughts around our business or the market or whatever might be, a negative thought emotion cycle. So the pattern interrupt, you can snap your fingers, right? You can do that. You can snap a rubber band on your wrist. Yep, I will typically tap the side of my head and I say out, right? Out. I'm the thinker of my thoughts and I get to choose my thoughts, and I get to choose thoughts that are in better alignment with that highest version of who I want to be. That's my pattern interrupt. So sometimes we forget that we are the thinker of our thoughts and we can change those. All right, guys, I'm going to give you a little tip here. I'm not even going to charge you for it, I promise. So this pattern interrupt only works on you. It does not work on anyone else. I'll tell you, not long ago, my husband was in a negative thought emotion cycle. And I'm like, I can fix this. I got this, right? So I walked over, tapped the side of his head, out. You are the thinker of your thoughts and you can change your thoughts. And it did not go well. So don't use it on anyone else, only on yourself. Deal? All right. So what percent of your business is buyers versus sellers? And make sure you're not buying into your own stories, right? Super important. All right. Question number 3. I love this one.
Hey, Susan.
How much?
Before you continue for the pattern interrupt, the previous one, right?
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure that's a huge one, by the way. So thank you for sharing that. So when somebody, I guess, right? Because the thing is, what do you do as far as like the thing is you got to remember it, right? So can you kind of just elaborate a little bit more on that pattern interrupt, like snapping like a bracelet or like the side of your head or something like that? That's great stuff. But when somebody's in the heat of the moment, right, they typically don't have the awareness. So what would you say is kind of like something that's helped you to really anchor in the pattern interrupt? Like, is it just practice? If you can elaborate on that, that'll be great.
That's a great question. So I'd say a couple of things. So number one, when I first did it, instead of tapping the side of my head, I've got a mala bead bracelet. So just a bracelet with like a little rubber band, right, that holds them on. So, and it was kind of clunky. So it was almost a constant reminder that it was right there, that as my emotions started to turn negative, right, that's why that bracelet was there, so that I could snap that and remind myself. I also got a tattoo on my wrist that says joy. So I see it and it reminds me, like literally reminds me to stay, okay, no, I'm not going into the negative. The other thing is something I've taught in the past is being able to take your emotional score. And if you get in the habit a couple times a day, that's a whole other training. But if you get in the habit a couple times a day of taking your emotional score, you're going to start to see and feel when you start going into those negative, those lower or red emotions. And you'll be able to start the pattern interrupt sooner than once you're in the heat of the moment and you totally are thinking about nothing else but that.
Love it. All right, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate you elaborating.
You're welcome. Great question. So question number 3, how much money have I left on the table? So I'm talking about commission here, right? So what would you have made if you had charged a full commission on every transaction? And yes, I'm even talking buyer sides, right? So if a full commission for you was 6%, what would you have made if you had made 3% on every side? Now, BAC in a lot of markets getting lower and lower, right? So if you're representing a buyer and let's say you're offered a BAC of 2%, I'm pulling a number out of the air, right? But your full commission for you is 3%. What if you had charged your buyer 1%? Right? What would that have looked like? How could you have done that? What kind of value would you be able to provide to charge that extra 1%? I pulled average commission in the state that I'm in, Indiana, the other day, and it was 5.87%. But I'll tell you, I'm not average. My agents aren't average, right? You guys aren't average. So don't settle for average. Don't settle for what, that going rate is in your market. How do you provide extra value and charge for it? So I used to give my agents a fake check every year. So the check was for the amount of money that they had left on the table. So I knew their GCI and I calculated what it would have been at 3.5%. That's what I chose to say a full commission is. So if they had chose charged 3.5% for every transaction, and I gave them a fake check for the difference. And sometimes seeing that number on that check, like their faces would turn green, like those little green emojis, right? And I actually had an agent, her name was Karina, and I gave her check the first year I did this. I gave her check, and I don't remember what it was for, but it was a significant amount of money. And that was the last check I ever gave her because she charged a full commission on every single transaction, or at least it averaged out the rest of every other year that I did that. So if she had a transaction where she ended up taking less, she charged more. Let's say she got a 2% on one transaction, she charged 4% on the next one. So she made sure that she evened out so that she was charging a full commission on her clients. So you guys are in charge of your income. If you're not happy with what you're making, provide more value and charge for it. The only way you can do that, though, is to provide that value. So also when we talk about money, make sure you're running a profitable real estate business. So you should know your profit and loss. You should know how much it's costing you to run your business and how much you're making. So your CEOs, CFOs, business owners. So make sure that you're doing those calculations. All right, next one. What is my time worth? So this is especially helpful if you're new or newer in real estate. So ask yourself, how many hours roughly, I used to ask my agents as my new one, how many hours roughly did you spend with each client, right? You can't do this, you've been in business 20 years. But if you've only had a few closings this year, you can say, all right, how much time roughly did I spend with each client from first contact to closing? And then how much was your commission? And the goal obviously is to do everything you can to increase that number, increase what your hourly rate is. Now, I know we don't get paid an hourly rate in real estate. I understand that, but we kind of do too, right? And as a new agent, I have seen so many times that we'll let one transaction take up 100% of our time. So if it takes an average of 30 days to close the deal, you made $6,000, well, then you've got to set aside 30% for taxes. So you actually made $4,200, and it took you 3 weeks of showing homes. So actually in 7 weeks, you made $4,200. Oh my gosh, and I've got gas money, right? Let's call it 4,000. So is it worth your time? And understanding what is my time worth? If you're experienced and you've been in business a long time and you're doing the things of putting the signs out and taking the marketing materials over and all of that, is that worth your time? So make sure that you're getting checklists in place. If you're newer in business and you don't know what the transaction looks like in every single step off the top of your head, get a buyer or a seller checklist in place so you can minimize each step that you're spending on the transaction. Make sure that your clients, if you're working with buyers, they're driving by homes before you show them. I know we all know this, but sometimes we forget to do it. Get a great, kick butt listing presentation, use a transaction coordinator or a virtual assistant and automate everything you can, even automate your marketing. So if you're using KV Core, you can use the Gather Your Sphere playbook, the Work Your Sphere playbook, the listing playbook. There's automatic postcards on the Marketing Center. So just know what you can do and what those things are that you can put in place to make the very most of every single second that you spend on your business. All right, number 5, question to ask yourself, what was my release rate? This is another one that I absolutely love. So ask yourself, how many mutual releases did you have compared to files pended? Now, personally, for my agents, myself, I want less than 5% fallout ratio. Now, in a strong seller's market like we were just in, the average fallout's closer to 10%, maybe 12% in some markets, but you're not average, right? So don't take what the average fallout ratio is and say that's my benchmark. You are not average, you're better than that. Learn how to negotiate better. Lead your clients, right? Don't let them lead you. I've told agents forever, when you hand over the reins of the transaction to your client, they don't know what the heck they're doing. So they're going to lead you all over the place. So prepare your clients for the sometimes bumpy road of buying or selling and say, look, if this happens, here's what we're going to do, right? Prepare them up front. And then I want you to look at why your contracts fell apart, right? Was it always over the inspection? I taught a class the other day on inoculating against objections. This is a sales technique using some NLP techniques, some neuro-linguistic programming. And I asked everyone, I said, what's your brick wall, right? What's that thing that you run into again and again and again in your business? And once you identify what is your brick wall, then you know what to inoculate against, right? You inoculate against that objection. I'll give you an example of this. When I started selling real estate, my sphere, my friends, family, they weren't in my market. They were in a different market. I didn't know anyone up here. So I started working internet leads, right? Great, why not? What's the number one thing an internet lead says when you call them? I'm just looking, right? I'm just looking. And that was my brick wall. I'm just looking was my brick wall, and I couldn't get past it for the longest time. So I decided, okay, I need to inoculate against this objection. So I started saying, hi, this is Susan I was with Remax at the time. So hi, this is Susan with Remax. I see that you were inquiring about 123 Main Street. If you're like most of my clients, you're just starting your search, you're just looking, and that's okay. But tell me, what kind of home are you looking for? And I took away their objection. So the only thing left to do was to answer my question and tell me what kind of home they're looking for. So once you inoculate against those objections, you have a path around it. So same thing, when you look at your release rate, especially if it's higher than what you want, you have a recurring reason that your contracts are falling apart. Determine what it is and learn how to get around it. All right, number 6, is my business increasing or decreasing, and why? If it's increasing, very simple, right? We dig into it and we pinpoint why. What are you doing differently? Recognize what it is and do more of it. It's very simple, but I'll tell you, there are many, many times I've met with agents and their business has increased by 20 or 40%, and I'll ask them why, and they'll go, I don't really know. I'm like, well, you probably should. Let's figure it out, right? So is it increasing or decreasing? If it's decreasing, dig in and ask yourself why. Sometimes it's something personal going on, but sometimes we need an energy reset, right? Leo was just talking about this a minute ago. So human potential is this trajectory, right? It's a combination of time and energy. So time marches on and on, no matter what you're doing or not doing. And your energy is the only thing that you can control, right? So when you manage your life energy appropriately, you can have a larger impact, not only on your real estate business, but on with your life, right? So Martin Luther King Jr., Anne Frank, William Wallace, I mean, these are people that had a huge impact on the people around them and on humanity, but they didn't have the longest time on earth. And miracles happen when you have unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. And that's the energy right there. That's the energy part of that trajectory. And miracles are when we get results beyond what we would think are normally possible, like doubling your business, right? Like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. When you have an
Hello. Susan, hello. I'm not sure if it's me or I can't hear you. Hello. There you go. I think we can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
Okay. Perfect. If I go out again, let me know and I'll plug in my headset.
All right, perfect.
All right, so usually what happens is the first setback happens, right? So you don't get the listing or a couple deals fall apart, and your faith, that goes out the window, right? And your action, it follows right after that. So you lose your faith that you can hit your goal, you stop trying so hard, your energy decreases with your action, yet time continues to march on, and you don't hit your goal, right? So if your business is decreasing, change the way that you manage your energy. And that's what Leo was just talking about. Exercise, meditation, mantras, reading a book, listening to a podcast, right? Can all change your energy. Jim Rohn said that your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success, it's really in the development, right? So we all want this level 10 life, but if we're a 2 or a 4 or a 6 in our development, that's where the disconnect is. So when we manage our energy, we have faith, we can increase our business and miracles will happen. All right, number 7, am I overcoming the obstacles in the market by focusing on the opportunities? So I think we would all agree that we are in a changing market, right? I've been doing this mid-year review so long now that I used to say we're at the front of a changing market. We're actually in the changing market, right? So market shifts create opportunity if you know where to look and what to do. So a lot of agents, though, they see change and they kind of stop. They have to wait and see what happens. So let's talk about some of the opportunities that we're seeing right now that you can take advantage of. Number 1 is this NAR lawsuit over buyer rep commissions. So if you work with buyers, I would highly recommend that you start focusing on how you provide value to your clients and how you charge them for it, right? Because instead of getting a BAC, a buyer agent commission, what if you had to negotiate for your commission with every buyer that you represented? Could you do it, right? What is your value and what's it worth to a client? And by the way, I would highly suggest your answer not be my service or I call people back, right? I would say it needs to be specific and tangible, and you need to prove to them how working with you saves them time and money, not just words, but proof, right? If you need help with that, Dan Kennedy is a great marketing guru, and he's got a free newsletter that he sends out every day. He was actually my coach probably 15 years ago, and I still teach some of what I learned from him. He's a great marketing person and can kind of teach you a little bit on increasing your value, and you can sign up for his newsletter if you need help with that. How's my how's my sound, Leo? Am I good?
Yeah, you're totally good. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, higher month supply and longer days on market. So I've got a question. How is your listing marketing plan? Do you know what a listing marketing plan is? We haven't needed one of those in a really long time. So for the last 5+ years, we put a sign up and the home sells, right? So we've not been selling our marketing. We've been selling our negotiation skills. And as our days on market are increasing, we're going to need to start selling our clients, our sellers, our plan to sell their home. If they don't get an offer in 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, right? What does that look like? So dust that listing marketing plan off and start working on it now. You should also start practicing your price reduction scripts. Or better yet, if it's allowed in your state, that's a question for your DMV, but start writing automatic price reductions into the listing contract, right? So if it's legal, you say, I'm going to list at 500,000, but if we don't have any accepted offers, Mr. Seller, by 14 days after listing, the price is going to be reduced to 475. So work with your managing broker on that. But if it's allowable in your state, you don't have to constantly keep going back and asking for those price reductions and adjustments. The last piece of this one, I would say, is look at your showing analytics through whomever is your showing provider. So we use Broker Bay in our area. We've used Showing Time. We've used CSS, Centralized Showing Service. So I pulled up showings in the Indianapolis market, my market, the other day. And in 3 weeks, showings have decreased by 78%. Now, there's probably several reasons for that. Probably a little bit interest rates, holiday, right? 4th of July, the start of summer, vacation time, right? There's a lot of things that can go into that. But if I know it, I can empower myself to get around that, that objection with my buyers and with my sellers. So look at those showing analytics through your showing provider. Right. Oh, that's just a marketing checklist and a little marketing booklet. So if you don't have a listing marketing plan, then you can very quickly and easily create that. If you need help with that, let me know. I can send that to Leo.
Yes,
all right, do what?
I said, yes, please send me over. I think somebody had asked about the checklist and all that good stuff. So if you could send them over, that'll be great.
Yes, I will.
For everybody that's listening in, I'll send you guys a copy.
Awesome. All right. So number 3, under the radar opportunities. So when we look at some of the under the radar opportunities, there's less competition. So I think number 1 would probably be understanding how to find and sell a HUD home. So if you've been in business less than 5 years, you may not have sold or know how to sell a HUD house. So if you go to HUDhomestore.com, you can register as a bidder. And then there's an FAQ section, and it will show you and tell you the process. If you've got a buyer who wants to buy a HUD home in your area, it'll tell you the process for that. It's not like you don't use your state contract, forms, your state purchase agreement. It's a very different process. So just knowing what inventory is out there and that there is this other inventory, sometimes it's shared on the local MLS, sometimes it isn't. So in my area, it is, but in other areas, it's not. So just understanding that process. I did just a spot check the other day. There were 23 HUD homes listed in Texas, 13 in New York, 15 in Mississippi. There were 7 in Indiana where I live. But about, 3 or 4 weeks ago, EXP agents in Indiana had 3 HUD homes pended. So they knew that those opportunities existed, and that was something that they were sharing with their clients. So that's an under the radar opportunity. If we do start to see some foreclosure rates increase, I don't know that we are, but if we do, you'll definitely want to make sure that you understand that HUD process. I think the second under the radar opportunity would be understanding how to prospect for clients on RPR. RPR is Realtors Property Resource, and it's actually a benefit that we're all given through our NAR, our National Association of Realtors dues. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with RPR or not. If you're not, highly suggest that you get familiar with it. The website is narpr.com. But what you can do is you can pull up pre-foreclosures and non-owner occupied homeowners on RPR. And if you go and you click on prospect for clients in the upper left-hand corner of your screen on RPR, it will literally walk you through how to prospect for these clients. And most agents aren't doing that. So it's definitely an under the radar opportunity if you're interested in pre-foreclosure or non-owner occupied homes. All right, number 4. So OfferPad and Opendoor last year bought just at 13,000 homes nationally, and they're not operating in all 50 states, much less every market, right? And that happened in the absolute strongest sellers market that most of us have seen in our career. So if you don't know what Express Offers is through EXP, you might look at getting Express Offers certified, or at least start working with the investors that are in your local market. So Express Offers is the EXP investor program. You take an online course, you get certified to work with the approved investors at EXP. I have heard agents tell me in the last 12 months or so that, oh my gosh, no seller in their right mind would take an Express Offer. Yet nationally, we're seeing between 18 to 25% of all homes being sold are being sold to investors. So if you're not Express Offers certified, you might get it. If you don't want to go that route, or you can't, then work with the investors in your local market to create that option for your listings and potential listings. All right, number 5, relocation. So I don't know if we have any relocation agents on the call, but I truly, personally believe that EXP will change the relocation game, because instead of the relocation companies having to work with 2 real estate brokerages, so one where the transferee is buying and one where they're selling, they're only going to have to work with one with EXP. So I think as the larger relocation contracts are expiring, the Cardises, the Brookfields, the Servas, and all of that, I think personally, we might see some of those shift to EXP. So relocation is definitely another avenue of opportunity if you're not relocation certified. All right, number 6, expired listings. So I want you to think about the strong sellers market that we're in, and or we've been in, and we have seen homes with 20 or 30 offers, literally, right? Once that starts to shift and we have more homes expiring without selling, that's going to have a huge emotional impact on those sellers, because their neighbor's home 6 months ago had 10 offers, yet theirs didn't get an offer, right? So that's a huge opportunity for the right agent. And then number 7, if you're into any kind of agent attraction, I think small to mid-sized real estate companies right now is a great opportunity. A shifting market tends to make them a little nervous, right? So there's inflation. So the cost of running an office is increasing, having that brick and mortar and the wages for their front desk staff and, the copy machine and the paper and the ink and all of that. So EXP could be a really big gift if you're doing any kind of agent attraction for those small to medium-sized companies. All right, so shifting markets create opportunities. What did I miss? Leo, did I miss any opportunities that you're aware of?
I think you hit everything on the head with everything you said, and I just think that right now everybody should be diving deep into skills, like skills and mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 I would say big assets, and I think you did cover those. And I love the fact that you shared about like the objection about covering that in the beginning of the script. Like one of the objections that we hear with the online leads a lot is, are you the listing agent? So I was like, I just wrote a little side note to myself, like, hey, this is Leo Robles. I work side by side with the listing agent, and I wanted to confirm our 3 o'clock still works, right? Like you isolate it from the beginning. So just that was a huge nugget for everybody that's running into any sort of objection, right, or a wall. Just isolate it from the beginning. So I love you said that.
Yeah, what's your brick wall? All right, the last thing we're going to go over here quickly is this is the strategic planning form that we talked about. So this comes from Success Principles. So And you guys, I promise this is gold, like literal absolute gold if you use it. So you'll start by writing your goal at the top. So whatever that is. And by the way, you shouldn't have 10 real estate goals. You might have 1 or 2 real estate goals that you want to hit by the end of the year. So you'll do one of these sheets for each goal that you have. So your goal might be 30 closings by the end of the year, or list 25 homes, or increase your GCI by 40,000, whatever it is, you're going to write it down. The strategy, to me, that's the fun part, right? So that's where you're going to brainstorm as many strategies as you can think of to hit that goal. And hopefully you can come up with 10 strategies or close to it. But if you've got a goal of 20 closings by December 31st, you might have one strategy of your sphere of influence. One might be past clients, lead funnels, FSBOs, expireds less than 12 months, expireds greater than 12 months, open houses, social media, right? You get the picture. So that's the strategy part. And then you're going to go into what are the weaknesses and some of the solutions that I have in order to hit my goals. So your weaknesses, those are your roadblocks, considerations, and fears. So your roadblocks, those are the things that are going to pop up on the way to hitting that goal. And they might be things like, I'm new to the area, I don't have a sphere. That was my roadblock when I started. I don't have a listing presentation, right? Considerations, those are the things that you'll have to take into consideration. Like, I'm going to have to work more weekends and my significant other may not like that, or I'm going to have to miss some gymnastics meets or some soccer games. And then you'll have to ask yourself, is your desire to reach your goal strong enough to get past those considerations? And lastly, those are the fears, right? And fears, if your goals are big enough, fears are usually the things that are going to stop you, but your fears aren't always what you think they are. And I'll give you a really quick example of that. I first started managing a real estate office in 2009. And a big part of my job was recruiting experienced agents. And I hated it. I hated everything about it. I hated calling them. I would put it off. I do everything else on my to-do list. And one day I realized, okay, Susan, I'm going to really have to get past this because I loved my job. I just hated that part of it. So I took a piece of paper and I wrote down, all right, what scares me about recruiting experienced agents? And I wrote my answer, picking up the phone. And then I wrote, okay, why do I hate picking up the phone, right? What scares me about that? And my answer, I wrote down, I'm afraid they're going to answer if I call them. All right, what scares me about that? I'll have to talk to them. What scares me about that? They might want to meet with me. What scares me about that? They might want to work for me. And that was a big aha for me. That was my breakthrough, because when I did this exercise, what I found was that I wasn't scared of being told no. That's what I assumed my fear was. But my real fear was that they would say, yeah, Susan, you know what? I think you're right. I think I am going to come and work for you. I think you can help me grow my business. And what if I couldn't? What if I wasn't good enough? That was my fear. So my solution was very simple. I took out another piece of paper and I wrote down everything that I did for my agents, the staff, the company, everyone did to help an agent grow their business. And I realized by looking at that, if an agent took advantage of everything that I was offering, there's no way they wouldn't be more successful. So that got me past my fear. So I grew that little 12-person office to 78 agents, #1 market share, highest per person productivity in our market, and it became a top 20 office in the country before I moved to VP of sales for the company. And that is the power of doing that exercise, right? But you have to do it. You have to go deep. Okay, what scares me about that? What scares me about that? So don't skip that section. I promise, it's gold. Then after you write down your roadblocks, considerations, and fears, you find 1 or 2 or 3 solutions for each one. So if plan A doesn't work out, you go to plan B, then you go to plan C. It's going to give you multiple paths. And the last step is you write down your action steps, right? What's next? You write a due date. If you're going to delegate it, write down who you're delegating it to, and then write down the date that it's done. And then you hand this sheet to someone that you trust, your sponsor, a mentor, a friend, and you commit to them that you will do this. There are 3 neurochemicals of goal achieving. It's dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. When you share your goals with someone that you trust, it creates oxytocin to help you achieve your goals. Because who cares about setting goals? I care about achieving goals. So I want to use every single available pathway to me to get me there. All right, last one. There's a Hayes Carll song that says, we're too busy telling our story instead of writing the book. He's talking about relationships. I'm talking about real estate, but I love the premise anyway. Stop telling your story of the market, the interest rates, my family, my friends, my coworkers, my whatever it is, right? We all have these stories and we're so busy telling our stories, we're not writing our book. So start writing your book and start surrounding yourself with other people who are writing their book. All right, that was a lot of information. I understand. Here's a summary of the questions. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I appreciate on your business today and not in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. You're amazing. Thank you so much for all the information. It's been very, very valuable. I think a couple of people asked about the worksheets. So if you could just email me the worksheets, that everything you shared, that way I could put it in an email for everybody that participated. And yeah, if there's any questions, this would be your opportunity as well. I think we answered most of them that were in the chat here. Let's see, can we share the link to the spreadsheet? Yeah, we're going to share all of these things, but is there anything that you guys may have for Susan? This would be your opportunity to ask any additional questions. Going once, going twice, maybe. Very cool. And I love it. Everything you said was on point, and I really appreciate it. So everybody that's tuning in, this has been recorded, so you guys can go back, obviously, to get this additional information. And Jamie just asked this question: how does she get permit info? Yeah, was that